DJI updated their beloved Osmo Pocket with a brand new sensor, pro features, and even bigger screen. It's practically everything anybody would need for a vlogging camera. But I wanted to know if this camera really lives up to the biggest features that it flexes, and see what it's lacking. So after 30 days, here's everything you have to know about the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. You see, I bought this camera because I became tired of searching for the perfect vlog lens for my Sony Alpha 6700. I hardly use these ultra-wide lenses to vlog anyway, so why should I pretend like I'm gonna use it and pack it in my camera bag? But when this camera came out, I saw the perfect replacement for a vlogging lens. It was something that I could use for behind the scenes, for a second camera, and yes, even a vlog camera, for someone who doesn't vlog that much. I even got the creator combo because I just believed in how much promise this product has, but more on that creator combo later. The first thing that got me excited about this camera was the 1-inch sensor. That little square inside your camera captures light, and the bigger the surface area of that square or rectangle, the more light will be collected. And the more light collected, the better your low light performance of your camera will be. We already have small sensors coming out of our phones, but if you can give me a camera with a bigger sensor, this makes it even more enticing. Low light images have plagued older iPhones, and nowadays they're getting even better with software. But the one thing that isn't changing from all these cameras is usually the sensor size. So if you're thinking about getting a vlog camera for everything, one of the most difficult environments for a creative is low light. But when you combine the low lights of your environment or even LED lights from your bag, you can still create a great image. I used to use the Sony RX100 Mark III, which also has a 1-inch sensor, and I love that as a second camera. So I could see the potential for the Osmo Pocket 3. As a vlog camera, it's expected that most content created with it is shot run and gun and on the fly, where lighting situations are often not ideal. So if you really want to have a dedicated low light setting for this camera, you have to go to the low light mode that's already preset in here, and the ISO actually expands up to 16,000, where in the regular video mode, your ISO will only go up to 6400. Here's what it looks like from the lowest ISO to the greatest ISO in video mode and low light mode. Now, although it's got a great sensor and is great in low light, it's not an excuse to shoot in near complete darkness. Do your best to still shoot near any kind of light, even if you have to use your phone's flashlight. And here's what it looks like when we use low light mode. But even if the noise of the image may not be perfect with imperfect lighting conditions, the autofocus on any DJI camera is still great, and this is no different. Since this camera has a wide angle lens, it's easy to be able to nail your focus, especially with their built-in face auto detect feature. No matter where you are in the frame, you can be tracked and followed, like how Jason Bourne gets tracked by the CIA. But if you often use the selfie mode, you could also turn on this toggle on the top menu for selfie face tracking, so that it automatically tracks and follows your face every time you flip that camera around towards you. For this feature alone was the only reason why I bought the big old DJI RS2 gimbal, because I wanted to track myself with my Sony camera. But I hardly use this feature because the setup time and the workflow for this particular gimbal setup, just to be able to film my YouTube videos, just made it so cumbersome for me to keep doing it over and over again. This, however, is so much easier with weight, setup time, and operating time. As great as the autofocus is, it's also not perfect, and you'll notice it when you use continuous autofocus. When you get two different subjects in the frame, you'll notice that the camera will be racking back and forth very often. And I got this effect a lot when I was using a top-down angle and trying to focus with the item right below and, moving it up and down. They don't quite work out. But if you want to get the smoothest autofocus and it's a predictable scene, consider using single autofocus if you want to prevent that hunting action going back and forth. There is also a product-centric autofocus, but I don't use this often. But essentially, you're still getting autofocus without face priority, so when you place an item in front of you, the camera will focus on the item instead of your face behind it. But one of the best features for video is this one right here, the dynamic framing. You can go ahead and keep you or your subject in the specific parts of the frame that you want, not have to worry about manually keeping your subject composed. You see, the camera is going to be locked in the right position and will tilt and pan automatically after choosing your person to track. I like to use this for tracking shots from the side, but of course you could use this when you want to track them from the front or from behind. Composition in and of itself will help your videos feel extra cinematic. But even without the fancy composition features, we can still sell the look of cinema by using the Osmo Pocket's D-Log. When we slide over to the right in the exposure menu, we can unlock this by going from the normal color mode to HLG to D-Log. I'm often using D-Log, which will give us a flat image that allows us to bring out a little more out of the image data. Then we can go ahead in our video editing software and color grade it, or even just slap your favorite LUT right on top so that it goes ahead and looks like your favorite movies or whatever look you prefer. I just wish that they allowed for like a Rec 709 preview or something so that I don't just see a gray image. DJI didn't have this feature on their Osmo Pocket 2, so they're really upping their game in their consumer market. Typically for some Sony cameras, you'd have to at least spend $700 to $800 to have a camera that even shoots in log. But even if you shoot with the normal colors, that's alright, because another built-in feature is of course the 3-axis gimbal. Go ahead, walk or run, and the image is still gonna be stable. I can also preview on the screen and feel how smooth the footage actually is. Hold it upside down, it's still gonna be stable. Do one of those vortex effects, and it's still gonna be stable. As a Sony shooter, all my cameras have that built-in image stabilization. But no matter how stable Sony can make their image, the technology doesn't replace a 3-axis gimbal. Unlike the latest and greatest phones from companies like Apple and Samsung, although they don't have a gimbal, they also stabilize their images well in post. But if you can get a 3-axis gimbal, you're way better off because you don't have to worry about cropping into your image as much, and you're just gonna get a better overall image when you're shooting the settings that you need, and you don't have to worry about little like motion effects or something just to compensate for all the motion in your shot. The Osmo Pocket 3, like their action cameras, are loaded with features like slow motion, time-lapse, and hyperlapse. But for the most part, I'm often in between the video mode and the slow motion mode. Video mode is allowing you to capture video with audio and with higher frame rates. Then when you're done, you can go ahead and slow it down in post or in your video editor. But in slow motion mode, there is no audio, and it's already slowed down for you so that you don't even have to touch your video editing software. A lot of camera companies these days are putting 4K 60 in most of their cameras. I tell you, we're just so spoiled, and it's just a great time to be a content creator. When it comes to image quality between 4K 60 and 4K 120, the image quality is the same between the two. So shoot freely at 4K 120 as you please and as needed. Let's take a look at the bigger screen real estate though for landscape videos. This is much needed from the previous version, which forced landscape video into a vertical screen. You see, in the top menu, there's a toggle for landscape orientation, vertical orientation, and auto rotation. I leave mine on auto rotation, so whatever the orientation of the screen is set to, it's gonna go ahead and mimic that orientation. So if it's like this, it's gonna be vertical. Like this, it's gonna be landscape. Anytime we can get a big screen in a small form factor, it's just a beautiful thing. But just because we get a beautiful screen, that doesn't mean we have the longest battery life, or do we? DJI says its 1300 milliamp battery will last up to 166 minutes of operating time and 116 minutes in 4K 60. But what actually happened with my testing is that I got 157 minutes or 2 hours and 37 minutes out of 1080 at 24 frames per second. Best part was, whether in 1080 or in 4K, there was no overheating. It was just a little warm to touch though. Now, I don't vlog for this amount of time, but if you need a second camera with a wide angle, you could definitely use this. This will last me the whole day if I'm intentionally concise with my shots. And if you need more battery, DJI says that their 65-watt charger can charge back up to 100% in 32 minutes, which is great if you have a battery bank that you can connect this to. But if you're looking for a battery life on the go without having to carry a bulky battery bank, then DJI gives us a solution for just that, since this camera does not have interchangeable batteries. In their creator combo, DJI provides a 950 milliamp battery grip that extends the life by 62% of operating time. Here are my record times with the battery grip compared to without it. In 4K, 24 frames per second, I got 4 hours and 1 minute with the battery grip compared to 1 hour and 57 minutes without it. In 4K, 60 frames per second, I got 1 hour, 51 minutes with the battery grip, and 41 minutes without it. As someone who uses this for mostly behind the scenes, for photo shoots, and the occasional cinematic shots for vlogs, it lasts me the whole day. I usually record in 1080 unless I need to punch in more. Now, if I told you that video was the most important part of this camera, that would only be half the truth. This is because the other half is good video is accompanied by good audio. So when I invested in the Creator Combo, I got this and more. The biggest thing about the Creator Combo is the wireless microphone. It has everything great about modern wireless mics these days, like automatic pairing as soon as you turn it on, and usability with a magnet for flexible mic placement. Plus, it's just a general wireless microphone. So my friend Nico Bolante even told me that you could also pair this with your phone if you really wanted to. You just have to go ahead and use the Blackmagic camera app for us iPhone users to select the DJI Mic 2 as your audio source and record it as mono instead of stereo. The crazy part is that it also serves as a start and stop remote for your videos when using the Pocket 3. I tell you, a camera kit like this has never been so convenient. You got extra battery grip, wireless microphone, that's already like 90% of what anybody needs. I used to think that one of the best microphones that you could get was a shotgun microphone that you could put on top of your camera. But as a camera setup like this wireless microphone is the way to go. I always recommend having a microphone as close as you can when you want to film yourself from far away. It's hard to do that when your microphone is tethered to your camera directly. But when it's wireless, you can go as close as you want to as far as you want from your camera. And if you're looking to clean up your audio, there's also a noise reduction option, which will come in handy when it comes to loud places like cities or events or wherever the volume may just be generally loud. Another important thing to note is that this microphone also has 32-bit float. If you're worried about your audio being too loud, if by any chance you film things like reactions, pranks, or even music, anything with loud volumes. So with 32-bit float, what you get is a wider dynamic range when you're recording internally. And if you need backup audio, the latest update for this camera allows you to record not only with your wireless mic, but also internally with your camera mic at the same time. Whereas before, it was only going to record to one source. But if you already have DJI microphones, you can go ahead and use it with the Osmo Pocket by using an adapter, or any microphone that you can connect to the USB-C port. The Creator Combo also came with an ultra-wide lens, which turns your 20mm wide lens, already default to the camera, into a 15mm wide lens. I don't use this often since most of the time the original camera lens is wide enough for me and keeps it cinematic looking without things getting too distorted. But when I do, it's really good for tight spaces or when I want to go ahead and include someone else right next to me in the shot. Plus, when you use the wide ultra lens, you also get distortion on the sides of the frame. To help store all this footage, I do use the Kingston 512GB card. To lessen my editing, I do tend to stop and start when I record. Although I do hear that from the older version of the Osmo Pocket, it actually had a pause feature that technically allowed you to cut your footage all in a single file. For my own personal vlogs, I do tend to just shoot 1080 to save space. But I know that if it's B-roll for something like a YouTube video like this, I will shoot 4K. But just because we have a camera that can do both, that doesn't mean we actually have to record at all. You see, another function of this camera is that you can go ahead and plug this into your computer and use it as a webcam. Just go ahead and connect this camera with your USB-C cable to your computer, should it support it, and you're good to go. I usually use the Sony FX30 as my webcam, so I don't even use this feature, but I could in a pinch. Now, as amazing as this thing has been, we still have to talk about the not so great stuff. First off, the photography. Although this camera does take photos, and great ones at that, it's not the main reason why I went ahead and purchased this, or even why they made this. So when you compose your shots, you still have to rely on the joystick to get the angle that you want. And it feels slower each and every time, even if the speed is fast. Whereas with a traditional point and shoot camera with 1-inch sensors, you can go ahead and use your hands, wrists, and fingers to get the angle that you want. And if you find that the angle is too wide for you as well, you can still zoom in. But I generally don't digitally zoom for my photos if I want the best quality photos. Since digital zoomed images are often deteriorated images looking like potatoes. And if my photos are going to look like potatoes, they might as well be turned into McDonald's fries. They have been pretty crispy lately. If there's anything that they could improve on this in the future, it's to include some sort of AI feature with this, where they can have a better digital zoom like Sony does with clear image zoom. Or maybe have like some topaz kind of Houdini magic to just make your images nice and crisp. But if not that, perhaps some quick buttons to zoom in and out, like a 1.5 times zoom or 2 times zoom for those who just want to grab something really quickly. And if people don't like that, let them customize it. Let them be custom buttons. That would be great in the next 2 years, just right here on the side. On top of those shortcomings, for those of you who like to shoot in manual mode and be able to control things like aperture, shutter speed, and ISO, we can't control the aperture. It's fixed. Normally this would help with controlling exposure, but if you want to use filmmaking rules like the 180-degree rule, where the shutter speed is twice the frame rate, definitely consider using filters. DJI has made some, but so has Freewell. The aperture itself also helps control depth of field, how blurry the background is and all that. But it's not a problem when it comes to wide angle lenses, since it's easier to nail focus and there's not as much bokeh, not as much blur unless you're really close to the camera. But I understand, all this helps keep the form factor overall small. So how much does this all cost and who is this really for? This DJI Osmo Pocket 3 comes in at $519 US and $669 US for the creator combo. I believe for the content creator who's trying to create quality content below $700, this is the way to go. Just go all the way with the creator combo and then get some ND filters if you want to practice more filmmaking fundamentals. And if you just get the camera, it's still the best vlog camera this year. Like if I'm someone buying a camera for the first time, this camera is very simple, but also gives opportunity for people to learn more about what it takes to make the most out of their camera for a more affordable price. Even if you just want a point and shoot camera, this is still a great option too. And if you're a seasoned video creator, you already know what you have to do in order to maximize this camera. And 95% of what you need, again, is like all here. Out of all the vlog cameras released this year, I believe this is the one that I can easily point anybody to, from beginners to professionals. But if you're looking for more serious cameras to upgrade to for content creation, start with this one.